Hey, it's Justin Colletti of SonicScoop, and today we're going to be taking a look at the world of AI vocalists and singers, and I'm going to see if I can break the very best AI vocalist singer tool I've found so far. AI vocalists, man, the first time I encountered this, if you haven't checked this out, you should. It is a cover of Johnny Cash doing I'm a Barbie Girl in a Barbie World, and also Elvis Presley doing a cover of, I think it was Sir Mix-a-Lot, Baby Got Back. And hearing those men sing the immortal words of I like big butts and I cannot lie, and I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world, made me realize that we're living in the future and there's no going back now. AI vocalists are here to stay, and there's so many applications for them. Some that are like potentially, I don't know, evil, and some that are potentially awesome. And I'm going to go through hopefully a little bit of both. And I'm going to show you what I think is the most robust tool I've so far seen that does this kind of thing. There's a few different ways of thinking about AI singers. I've got Pro Tools open today, and I've also got my Safari screen open today where we can check out this tool that is called Audimee. And this one is based around vocal replacement. So you could potentially do the kind of thing where, for parody purposes, like I've just described, the applications are obvious. You could sing a song and then basically take an AI model of any famous singer and put it on top of your voice. So the uses for parody there are obvious. But are there practical uses in day-to-day music production? And there's some that are actually helpful and creative and awesome and soulful. And what are the ones that are potentially soulless and the ones that we might take ethical umbrage to and want to avoid? And I'm going to think through some of those issues with you today, but more importantly, just have fun playing around with some of the sounds and what's available now. Audimee reached out to me because they wanted me to try out their tool. So they gave me a free account. They're supporters of this channel, so big thanks to those guys. And I've tried several of these tools because there's this renaissance right now in this kind of vocal creation software, and I've tried a bunch of them, and so far Audimee has been the best and most robust one, and it has some additional features that most tools like this don't have. There's even been some companies that have similar services that have reached out to me saying, hey, could we get you to do a video on our stuff? And I've checked them out and I'm like, no, you're not ready yet. You're not ready for prime time. You're missing some features. Come back to me when you have this, and this. But Audimee has it all, at least for this purpose. I think that there's two major ways to think about using these kinds of tools in music production. One of them is something that I've seen before with other tools where you can create, say, MIDI notes and MIDI lyrics and input those, and it'll synthesize a voice for you, almost like text-to-speech. What we might be used to going back to Stephen Hawking, right? Sitting in his wheelchair, being able to talk by moving his eyelids or whatever it is, and using text-to-speech to synthesize a voice. That technology has been out for a long time. However, making that technology seem realistic has been something that's started to come to the fore in recent years. But this isn't that. This isn't text-to-speech. This is taking actual spoken or sung material that you sing yourself or you have a singer do and totally replace the tone of it so that you'll be able to hear me in just a minute replacing Judy Garland's voice singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow with my voice. That's right. I created a vocal model of Justin Colletti that you'll be able to hear me singing. And I've done this. I have brought up We Are the Champions by Freddie Mercury and replaced his singing with my own voice, but with his inflection, with his awesome skills at singing, which are obviously far superior to mine. So I'm going to give you a sense for how to do all this stuff, how you might use it. But real quick, I want to take you for a tour of what Audimee does and what I think some of the most useful applications are here. So thing number one that we can do is it's super simple to just upload any input, any voice input here, and then select from a whole range of singers. I can open up this menu, and right now I've got Blake pulled up. He is a grunge singer kind of tone. They've got Mark, this is a pop dance singer. Nicole, another kind of pop dance singer. Josephine, much different tone than Nicole. Tina, this is the only one that really sounds like a specific celebrity I can think of so far. This is definitely like a Tina Turner kind of vibe. And you can preview all of these. So here's an actual voice model of Mark. Let's see if this plays back and tell me if it's a good level compared to my voice for you coming through Safari.
Been living this life so patient until I see you again. It's what we're facing.
So that is a AI replacement of another singer. Here is their character Blake, his vocals.
There's not much time left today. Life is a highway. I wanna ride it all night.
So one of the things you can do here is you might recognize some of these songs. Here's Tina. You might recognize some of these songs because they've actually taken isolated vocals from major singers and replaced them with these curated singers that they've created. There's a whole library of them. And one of the more interesting things that you can do that only Audimee does that I've seen so far is that you can blend certain voices. So you can create a blend of multiple singers. You can also create a voice model based on your own voice or the voice of anyone you can get sufficient material from. So what are the creative applications of this, and how do you actually use this in music production? I'll get to that in 1 second. But one other thing I want to show you here is not only do they have all these royalty-free voices, but there's also instruments. So this part is in beta, but there's this instrument modeling feature where you could basically whistle a flute part and replace it with a real flute. You could play a guitar part and replace it with a saxophone. And we'll hear some audio examples here in just a second. But again, here's a quick audio example of their saxophone sound. Oh, I guess I don't get a particular audio example on this one. I didn't click in the right place, but I can load up a saxophone instead of a vocalist. And then I have these that I've created using my own voice, a whole bunch of different ones in here. So let's start hearing these in just a sec, and then I'll talk about some of the applications. I'm going to pull up, you know what? Let's pull up the Blake voice again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a female voice and we're going to run a female voice through this Blake model just to hear what it'll do. So here's an input that I have for you guys. Check this out.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Little vocal riff from a female singer.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
And we can replace this with a male voice. I've actually gone ahead and processed it on the Blake voice. Here it is.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
And here it is with the, do I have any other voices here loaded up? Here it is with the Mark voice.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
So you can hear it preserves the exact inflection and pitch of the original voice, but it replaces it with a totally different sounding voice. Here's one of the Tina voice.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
So really simple, really easy to use. And if you want to use this, just go to audimee.com and you can do this for free, just like I've been doing it right now. But if you want to actually subscribe to it and use the service, they're also giving a discount code to SonicScoop viewers. So you can enter SonicScoop.com if you actually want to get one of the paid versions that allow you to do even more and give you unlimited conversions. Just enter SonicScoop at checkout and you'll get a 20% discount off of either the first month and a 3-month plan, or I think the first year and a year plan. I forget. I have it written in the show notes exactly what their deal is, but it's a 20% deal on the subscriptions for people who are viewing this right now. But what are the applications? Like, why would you actually use this? How is it more than a curiosity? I can think of, 3 major applications here. Number one is the idea of doing demos that you'd write for other artists. This is an obvious one, so I kind of want to breeze by this. But you could do a demo for an artist. Say you're a male singer-songwriter and you're creating a song that you want to have sung by a female singer. You can sing that song to the best of your ability and then transpose it into a female's voice so that this female singer can hear how it comes across in that register. You can right here from this pitch shift the vocal up or down, so you can do that kind of thing right in here. And if you're a female writing a song for a male singer or someone with just a different character voice, you could replace it with a voice that's closer to that character. So you can get across the idea of a song in a way that's more relatable for the person you're writing for. Here's the crazy thing you could do. If you got appropriate material from the singer in question who you want to have singing the song, you could actually replace your voice with their voice. Now that's absolutely nuts. You just need 5 to 10 minutes of them singing in a variety of registers, and you can create an IA model of them. And you can sing the song and replace yourself with the tone of their voice singing the song. That's absolutely crazy, but it's totally doable. Another thing here that you can do, and I think this is possibly the most practical application, is for background vocals. For recording artists who have lots of ideas for singing background vocals and they want to do these layered harmonies, what's been popular for the past 20 or 30 years are vocal stacks of a whole bunch of stacks of the same singer. And that can be cool, that can be interesting. It can give this kind of slightly otherworldly feeling. But it never sounds as kind of natural and real and choir-like and gang vocal-like as a whole bunch of different singers with different timbres singing the same line. So this is a situation where you could go in, sing a whole bunch of backgrounds and harmonies yourself, and replace each of those harmonies with an iteration of yourself with one of these royalty-free voices on, or with the voices of practically whoever else you want to grab. So that's one of the most obvious ways, I think, for using this thing, is you're creating background vocals and you don't want to have this, what has been popular style of just a single voice on every single layer and every single harmony. It's a cool tone. And when people do it well, I mean, there are artists who I love when they do that. But it's a particular sound. And if you want to fake the sound of having a whole bunch of background vocals and really making it sound like a true gang vocal, you can now make gang vocals yourself with a single singer. So I think that's an incredibly awesome potential application here. But there's also creative applications. What if you took singing and ran it through some of these instrument presets? And this is something that I played around with. And in some of them, if you're not really imitating the instrument well, it doesn't really end up sounding so much like that instrument, but it does sound like a weird, interesting effect. Like, for instance, if I take, I don't know, I haven't even tried this yet, but if I take a violin and now I go ahead and apply violin to this same vocal riff that we've been listening to so far, it's not going to sound right. It's not going to sound like a violin. You'd really have to hum or whistle something that really feels like a violin part without definable words for it to actually effectively sound like a violin on playback. But you could blend the vocal together with a really bad example of a violin or a flute. And it just gives it this interesting sound. Let me put on my headphones with you. I tried one of these vocal riffs with a snake charmer flute and thought that was just a really interesting output, even though it shouldn't work. And let's hear it with the violin. I haven't heard this yet. Let's see if we can break it in real time. I know you don't love me like you say you do. Okay, that was even cooler than the flute. We got to hear that one more time. Here's the original.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
And here is the violin version.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
I mean, that's cool. Throw some effects on that, layer it with a vocal. I think that this is possibly one of my favorite applications. I've seen that there's a tool from Waves. I think Waves has a plugin that does something similar to this, where you can kind of make the music with your mouth beats. But this kind of thing, I think that these tools are going to become popular, especially for this. This is like the modern version of a vocoder. What other instruments do you guys want to hear in here? Let me know in the chat box there what I should try it on. I don't know. I'm interested in trying guitar or tenor sax now. Let's give that a shot real quick. Let's see if we can break this thing with, dance strings. I'm curious about that. Let's try tenor sax. All right, there's their tenor sax sample. Let's try processing this with tenor sax.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
There's our original. And our other one is converting over here. Now, this is probably taking slightly longer than it normally does because I'm live streaming a whole bunch of video and I have a bunch of applications open at the same time. But here it is. And that's off of someone singing with words. Now, imagine if you actually just tried to sound like a saxophone with humming or making mouth music and then ran it through this. You can get pretty convincing saxophone sounds. And who could this be useful for? I mean, can't we already do this with synthesizers? You just get in there and you either play it in or programmed in. And yes, but there's a lot of us who are musically expressive, who can express musical ideas with our mouths, with humming, with singing, with whistling, who don't know our way around a keyboard very well. Or we can put some human inflection in, even if we do know our way around a keyboard well, to actually write in the glides and the dynamic changes and everything that you want would be more difficult and maybe less human than just singing it or humming it or whistling it. And it's a new way to interact with synthesis and sample replacement. So I think that that's an incredibly cool idea. Now, a couple things to know here. The vocal sounds themselves are, I think, better than what you can get in your own home studio. Like if you were on the road singing to like a crappy earbud mic in a noisy room, you could potentially do that and then replace yourself with a model of yourself singing in a good sounding room on a Neumann U47. Like that's entirely possible. You can put really lo-fi sounding input in and you would still get this quality of output out.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
So that's entirely possible. Another thing that you can do here is pitch shifting. And it'll also preserve you if you sing badly. So I tried the whole gang vocals idea myself, and I just sang this line myself on purpose badly. I'm going to say I can sing slightly a better tune and timing than this. But this is me singing now, singing it fairly badly, replacing with the Tina voice. I think I had to pitch shift it down 12 steps
I know
here.
you don't love me like you say you do.
That's me. I just did that right here. And you can actually do it right into this. You can hit the record button and practice yourself right now. You just hit record here, sing the line, and then that's what's going to be replaced. This is also me with a Nicole voice. I didn't have to pitch her. This is me as a very kind of deep alto woman.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
And you can tell that's a different take, right? Totally different inflection, totally different timing. And it's not correcting my pitch. So this is another useful thing about using this for background vocal applications. So that is all me. Now, I think I also did one at some point of me doing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Because one of the other cool things you can do here is you can go in, type any song. I can type in Somewhere Over the Rainbow, isolated, and it will come up with YouTube matches that suit this. So if there's anything you want to hear with my voice redone, we're going to listen to, if I still have it here, the Judy Garland version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow with my voice. And I chose this one because I've sung this one to my daughter a bunch of times, and it really goes through the whole range, right? There's an octave jump right in the beginning of the song. Let me see if I can find the audio example I did of this, but I can load up her isolated vocals from YouTube right through Audimee's interface. And I think it might be here. Now, I'll give you a warning here. What it doesn't work well with are things like multiple vocals at once. Things with background vocals, background music, they do have this option of removing the instrumental, removing background vocals, removing echo, removing noise. They work okay. There's just a few variables here. These work okay, but you really got to use this thing, I think, to get the best results with isolated vocals. There's also this, in addition to the pitch knob, there's this conversion slider knob here. I'm having the best results with the conversion strength all the way on 0. And that preserves the original singer's inflection and diction the most. And you'll really be able to hear that, because when you hear my voice singing some Judy Garland, you're going to be like, oh man, that doesn't sound like how Justin would actually sing that. That sounds like how Judy Garland would sing it. I believe in there's a little bit of an introduction where they're talking, and that will sound weird, so I'll fast forward through it.
Here
we go. See if I can find it.
Boat or a train, high in the moon.
There's the talking.
Way over the rainbow, way up high. Some land that I heard of once in a lullaby.
That was interesting.
Way over the rainbow, skies of blue. And the dreams that you dare to dream rain to clouds roof.
So I think there's a few issues with the material that I sent it, and I want to give you a sense for how it can go wrong on the vocal model. So what I think messes with the tone and texture of this is leaving breaths in when you're creating the vocal model. So one of the things that I've noticed on the vocal model that I created is it doesn't have the same kind of diction that they're able to capture so well with some of the other singers that are in here. And I did not remove, I put in just a compressed EQ'd vocal, and my breaths are huge in this. And I think it's bringing out some of this breathy quality that it's adding to my voice. But otherwise, this is taking Judy Garland's performance, pitching it down by a fifth, and having me re-sing it. And I don't know. It does kind of sound like my voice. It's a kind of weird experience. We can do the same thing. I had done it, I think, before with We Are the Champions. And this is a way I'll show you we can break it again by leaving the background vocals in. Let me see if I can find We Are the Champions, and we'll do the isolated vocal version. And, vocals only, concert mashup. Let's try this one. So it's now drawing from this, and I can select which of these samples I'm going to use. Let me go back to the ones that I've created. And I actually did one where I sang the same notes in We Are the Champions. So let me hit that. We'll select it. And I'll also bring up in, let's see, Pro Tools here. We can try out some vocal stacks. So give me a second to grab that. Here's We Are Totally Live. Here's Pro Tools screen. All right. And as I'm going for this and waiting for this one to load up, let me go ahead and check out your guys' chats that have been coming in, because I know there's been a whole bunch of them. Is there any ways that you want to see me break this, or anything particular you want me to try? So here are some of the comments. Skeleton Pete writes in to say, podcasts are definitely going the route of using a lot more of this kind of technology. This is something that we noted. I've been hearing this more and more in podcasts when they want someone to read from a book or from text that we're going to be discussing in the podcast. I'm more and more often hearing these kinds of either vocal replacements or good sounding text to speech. So this is another potential application for spoken word stuff. Pete mentioned that he had done this in some productions that he had done. He used the text to speech function, but you could, in creating your own spoken word context, potentially read out an entire passage and then replace yourself with, an 18th century Victorian woman's kind of voice. You'd of course have to read in the inflection and pronunciation of that kind of person, but you could replace yourself with a male or female voice or a different character voice to make a really clear separation between what's being narrated and what's being said by you in the podcast and what's being read by a character. Tanner by the Sea says, my sister was Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She sounded just like Judy, dude. Now she could sound even more like Judy by just replacing Judy Garland's voice with her voice. I think that's pretty incredible. Skeleton Pete says, is this an online service, downloadable standalone app, a plugin, or all the above? To my understanding, Audimee right now is only a web-based app, but it's an extremely easy to use one. You go in and you basically upload sounds. It's probably the most robust one that I've seen that's on this subscription model. But yeah, you go online and it's actually very easy to interface with because you don't have to worry about the sound quality of your own voice going in. You can record anything, anywhere. You can record from your phone, on your phone, upload that, and replace it with studio sounding vocals off of your microphone on your phone or off of the microphone on your laptop if you're singing into this browser based. Tanner says he dropped a new track today. It's on Spotify. Go check out Tanner by the Sea. He's a follower of the channel and he's dropping new tunes. All right. Dystopian 84. I wonder what his take is going to be on AI, but he says AI can now generate full songs in seconds. I don't see the point in wasting time with so much human input. Man, you have the most appropriate username I've seen with that comment. I do see the point of wasting time with human input on music. I don't think I want to live in a world where I only listen to AI-generated music, although more and more of that is happening. There have been full television commercials, or if anyone watches TV anymore, video ads that have been composed by, I think Red Lobster has one out now that was composed completely by AI and maybe played by AI. Mason asks, can you change your accent? So this is one of the interesting things about this particular one, Audimee, is it preserves the original pronunciation. So you'll hear, if you listen closely to the Judy Garland one, it really does preserve her accent. She's singing words like where in a way that I wouldn't pronounce where. It really is preserving her pronunciation, her diction, but somehow the sound and tonality of the voice is mine, even though the pronunciation and delivery is hers, if that makes sense. So it becomes this hybrid of, it sounds like me doing a Judy Garland impersonation. So it won't quite change your accent. However, if you did like an accent, like sang or spoke in a very different way from how you would normally sing or speak, and then replace it with some of this, then man, you could really fool someone into feeling that it's not you. So for instance, if I tried to do my best Judy Garland impersonation, saying with the kind of delivery she would give in her register, and then replaced it with a model of Judy Garland's voice, it should sound a lot like Judy Garland, except with much less convincing timing and tuning, because I'm not nearly as good as at singing. Jorah says, what if AI generates all possible melodies and copyrights them? Oh my goodness, that's dystopian. Whew. There's so many legal ramifications that this brings up. So here's a question. You can't copyright just a little one-off melodic phrase that's not the major melodic component of a song. Like you can't necessarily copyright a riff, say in a guitar phrase, right? You can't copyright a bar of a guitar solo. So what happens in a world where you can take vocal riffs from like really famous singers and then replace it with your own voice singing it or someone else's voice singing it? It is now technically no longer a sample. So this is interesting. This is one of the legalities around using something like this. With Audimee, with their service, you can, from YouTube, rip some of this stuff and then download a recreated vocal, a resynthesized vocal based on an a cappella track that you find on YouTube or somewhere else. And technically, that is not a sample. Now, arguably, and maybe when lawyers get involved with this at some point in the future, they might say, hey, well, you actually had to create a recording of the song for your AI to work with it. So therefore, that was the point at which you sampled. That was the point at which you made an unlicensed copy. And then maybe some finger wagging would ensue. But right now, that hasn't happened yet that I know of. But I can imagine that being a future legal battle. Now, what you're still left with on the legal front is the copyright of the actual song. So whoever wrote Somewhere Over the Rainbow, if that one's still under copyright, I'm not sure that it is, but knowing, does Disney own that? No, it's MGM probably who owns Wizard of Oz. Unless Disney bought it, they seem to buy everything, just hoovering up all of the IP around the world. Hey, we already have to worry about Disney copywriting everything. Now we have to worry about the Terminator doing it too. That's interesting. But imagine that kind of situation where you have a song that is a cover song, so you don't have to worry about the copyright to the actual underlying song because it's a public domain song, but you're taking someone else's performance. And now you're technically not sampling their performance because you're resynthesizing it. And it's not a direct recording or sample of their original performance. It's an AI generated one. And this totally changes things because there's a whole genre already of sound-alikes where people do sound-alike compositions. So even if a legal rule came up saying you can't just use Judy Garland singing something in the public domain, resynthesize that, and not give credit to the original sound recording rights holders. But what if you said, oh no, I just did a sound-alike. I did a sound-alike vocal that sounded just like Judy Garland singing, and then I put that through a synthesizer, and I didn't save all of my steps, so I can't show you all of that. Man, would you have to prove your work like that? Would you have to retain all those records to fight a legal battle around that kind of issue? Interesting questions. But there are so many applications for this stuff where you don't have to worry about any of those legal concerns. Alex says, I was thinking the same as, I imagine, dystopian, that this is the beginning of the end. Liminal says, the future is totally customized content. Movies that are so personal, that are like your dreams, and music that is so deeply personal, it will hit your soul. Man, do you really think robots can do that without our help? I have trouble believing that. I have trouble believing that an AI will be able to create something completely from scratch that's so deeply personal, reliably, that it will hit your very soul. I don't know. I think human beings are still going to be part of that equation. If it does hit your soul, might it hit your soul in the way that something that is less ultimately edifying hits your soul? You know, there's a difference between an intimate experience with a human being and an intimate experience with a screen. And I think intimate experiences with screens could hit you in the soul, but not maybe in the way that you're looking for, if you know what I mean. All right, let's see. I see some more. HK says, is it chord sequences that you can't copyright? That's correct. You can't copyright a chord progression. You also can't copyright a bass line unless it is a melodic bass line that you can basically copyright words and melody. And if the bass line in a song graduates to the level where it's basically a melodic hook, then possibly that bass line could be copyrighted. But you can't copyright a chord progression. Now, these things so far don't do chords yet. Skeleton P says somewhere it goes public domain in 2056, 70 years after the death of its author, Harold Arlen. Oh man, I have so many different thoughts about copyright and copyright lengths and terms that we could talk about in some other podcast episode, but I think that's for another day. JDX says all AI requires databases to start off with, which is created by human beings. Well, at least for now. Man, eventually AIs could create enough new databases that were originally generated off original AI input that we could become, original human input. So humans create a database that AIs can extract from, but then you can have these databases that are now created by AI. So where's the second generation music of AIs looking at databases created by AIs? Man, could be interesting stuff. But for right now, let's focus a little bit more on this fun tool and not all of this, possibly, what's the word I'm looking for? Existential crises about music and production and how it works. Yes, the future is here. Yes, the world has changed with a service like Audimee. I think you should totally try it out. This is something that if you haven't at least played around with, you're doing yourself a disservice. You should know what these tools are capable of, what they're not capable of, and find some in your own productions. My top ways, again, if you're writing for other singers and you want to present it in a voice that's closer to theirs or potentially in their own voice, that's one way of doing it. 2, background vocals, easiest no-brainer application. Just do gang vocals and you can have, 30 or 40 different singers here to draw from. And then 3, and possibly my favorite one, is the intersection of voice and instruments and creating your own customized blends possibly of voices and instruments. So you could just straight up replace your voice with a violin, but you're actually allowed to, in at least the paid version of Audimee, create your own AI models, which could be a single voice that you upload, a combination of voices, or a combination of a voice and an instrument, or get this, a combination of multiple instruments. In the My Voices section here, I can upload anything. I can upload vocals of me singing. I've uploaded a whole bunch here to create some of these models. But there's an art to this too. I didn't love the results I got on my version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow because I felt like there was too much breath sound in it because the AI is mishearing my breaths as being singing content. And it's added this extra breathiness to my voice that shouldn't be there, although otherwise it really got the tone of my voice surprisingly well. So there's an art to doing this. And I think you have to mess around with it a little bit, make sure you're giving it good, dynamically consistent material with breaths cut out, ideally without reverb or delay on it. I think that can confuse some of the models as well. If you have a little bit of room sound, I think that'll totally work fine. But the drier the environment, the better, I think, for creating these models. But I can also go into this mixed voices section and create a mixed voice by grabbing any two voices. And this could be a model of my voice plus a violin. It could be a violin plus a saxophone. What would that sound like if we grab the combination of a violin and a saxophone? Let's do it right now. I'm going to see if I can break this service. I thought we got interesting results with the violin. We got interesting results with the saxophone. Here, we'll choose saxophone as one. We'll choose violin as the other. We'll split it 50-50 and create a mixed voice. Now, it's doing this in real time in the background. It's in a queue to be processed, so it'll probably take, oh, it's almost done already. 80%. I barely have to stall here. How do you think it's going to sound? Are there any particular mixes that you guys want to hear? Let me know. This is the last quick conversion I'm going to do here. If you want to try this out for yourself, I encourage you to do it. Go over to Audimee.com. If you want to use any of the paid versions where you can create your own voices and the mixed voices and have unlimited access to this stuff, then there's 20% off that with the code SonicScoop at checkout. All one word, SONICSCOOP. So let's see here. Theoretically, I should be able to upload. Here's as simple as I could just hit record, or I can go in here to add an audio file. I'm doing this all in real time. Of course, I'm streaming heavy video at once, so if there's any hangups or it goes a little slow, that's why. Grab the female voice input that I have here. And we'll try this one last test. I'm going to turn down the conversion strength. I've been having the best results that way. We'll keep the pitch as it is. We'll keep all this stuff off. And now, in my voice that I'm going to select, we're going to go to my mixed voices. 50% tenor sax, 50% violin. Man, I hope this is as cool as some of the other ones. Just to remind ourselves of what they sound like. I'm converting right now. And while it's converting, here was one of the male versions of this riff.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Originally created with a female voice. Here is our violin version.
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Here's our violin version. I'm just amazed at how well those work, even though there's actual words in here. And here's 50% sax, 50% violin. What does that sound like?
I know you don't love me like you say you do.
Now imagine that as being like an affected just vocal throw somewhere in a song, or being something that you blend in at like 20% with your own vocal lead as a vocal effect. Or what if that's the reverb send for your vocal? Oh man, that would be a cool application. You take your main vocal, and instead of that being what's sent to your reverb or delay, you keep that completely dry and you send the saxophone version or the 50% saxophone version, 50% violin to your effects. Your reverbs and delays are triggered by this new resynthesized version of your voice. That's half instrument, half man. Now, those are creative human ways of dealing with this stuff. Let me know if you have your own. Check it out. If you're here for the live chat, I'm going to read through all the rest of your chats after I log off here. And for those of you who are checking this out in the future, if you have tried it out, let me know in the comments down below, what were some of your favorite applications? What were some of the most interesting sounds we went over today from your perspective? And if you played around with this for yourself, let us know in the comments down below. What worked well for you? What did you think could be improved even further? Technically, the instrument stuff is still in beta, but I think it's working surprisingly well. The voice stuff is working really well. The vocal replacement, creating your own models, I think there's a little bit of an art and a science to creating those. So if you don't get great results with your own voice in the very first try things like cutting out breaths, making sure you're turning off reverb and delay, that kind of thing. And mess around with it, and I really want to hear from you. How do you use this? How have you used it? And if you create a song with this, link it down there in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out with me. This has been Justin Colletti, checking out Audimee. Check them out, audimee.com. Big shout out and thanks to those guys for helping making this video possible. And if you want to check it out, the paid version, enter SonicScoop at checkout for 20% off. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. See you next time.